The first week in her new apartment passed in a haze of unpacking and sleeping too little. Ola didn't mind the chipped paint or the draught under the balcony door. She liked the anonymity of the building, the way her neighbors kept to themselves. After her breakup with Marek, solitude was a relief. But on the 7th night, just as she began to drift off, a sound pulled her back. Tap, tap, tap. Old pipes, probably. That day, Ola had a check-in with a resident in the same building, Zofia Kowalska, 91 years old and sharp as a tack. Ola had been visiting her once a week as part of her social work rounds, helping her manage medication and groceries. She knocked gently, then waited. The old woman's eye appeared through the peephole before she unlatched the door. "You live on the 3rd floor now, don't you?" she asked before Ola could speak. Ola blinked. "Yeah. How did you know?" "I heard someone new moved into 3C. You've heard the knocking, then?" The breath caught in Ola's throat. "Excuse me." Zofia stepped back and gestured for her to come in. The flat smelled like chamomile tea and mothballs. Every surface was covered in lace, books, and rosaries. The curtains were drawn. "It started years ago," Zofia said, settling into her armchair. "Always at night. Always the same time. It used to be fainter. From far away. But lately, it's closer." Ola frowned. "Closer how?" The old woman tapped her own wall. "Upstairs. Right above me. Then your unit. There's no apartment above me." "I know," Zofia said. "That's what's strange, isn't it?" Ola left that visit more unsettled than she'd care to admit. She'd always prided herself on being rational, practical. She'd dealt with delusional clients, paranoid tenants, even a hoarder who kept jars of her own fingernail clippings. She wasn't easily rattled. That night, she sat up in bed with the lights off, phone in hand. The clock turned 1:41 a.m. Her heart pounded louder with each passing second. Then, tap, 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 right on cue. She held her breath. It was louder now, definitely behind the wardrobe. She climbed out of bed, barefoot on the cold parquet floor, and stepped closer. She pressed her ear to the plaster. Nothing. Then, tap, tap, tap. Again, sudden and crisp, directly behind her head. She flinched back, stumbling over her slipper. That night, she barely slept. When she did, she dreamt of someone crawling through walls, moving slow and low, just out of reach. She woke with her sheets tangled around her legs and a sore spot on the back of her head, as if she'd been lying against something solid. The wardrobe. Later that morning, she shoved it aside. Dust scattered. Nothing unusual, just cracked plaster, water-stained wallpaper. But as she examined the area more closely, her stomach dropped. There were scratches near the base of the wall. Not from furniture. Not from wear and tear. They looked like marks from fingernails. Ola tried to shake it off. Maybe the scratches were old. Maybe someone else had moved the wardrobe before and gouged the wall. Or maybe the entire building was just falling apart, like everything else in her life lately. But at work that day, during her lunch break, she couldn't stop thinking about apartment 307. The floor plan of the building didn't quite make sense. Her own unit, 3C, was listed as the top floor corner flat. But next to it, there was supposed to be another apartment, 307, yet she'd never seen anyone come or go. No lights, no sound. She brought it up with Stasek, the building's so-called superintendent, though he preferred being called property manager. He mostly ran a bakery downstairs and avoided eye contact. 307, he said, chewing on a toothpick behind the counter. Been empty since the fire. Ola leaned forward. What fire? 3 years ago. Tenant left a pan on the stove. Whole place filled with smoke. We gutted the kitchen. Owner moved out and never came back. Happens. Why's the door still locked? He shrugged. Insurance mess. Still tied up. The apartment's sealed. No one's been inside. But someone's getting mail delivered there. That made him pause. I saw a stack of letters in your back office, she added. Addressed to 307. From February. Stasek narrowed his eyes. You snooping in places you don't belong? I'm just saying maybe someone's squatting there. I'd know if they were. Ola let it go, but she knew he was lying, or at least avoiding something. That night, after dinner, she climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and stood outside 307. The door was dull brown, padlocked through a thick metal bracket, with chipped numbers above the frame. She crouched low and looked under the door. Darkness. No flicker of light. No sound. She reached out and touched the doorknob. Cold. Then, just as she stood to leave, she heard it. Click. The unmistakable sound of a lock turning from the inside. She froze, heart galloping. The padlock was still secure. No one could have turned it from within. And yet, she had heard it. Not imagined. She took a step back. Another. Then walked quickly, too quickly, down the hall to her apartment, slammed the door shut and latched it. She didn't sleep. Every noise felt like a whisper through the walls. In the morning, she opened her front door to find a folded piece of paper lying on the doormat. Her heart sank even before she read it. You're being watched. No signature. No envelope. No markings. She reported it to the police that afternoon. The officer at the desk, a bored-looking man in his 40s, didn't even pretend to be concerned. Could have been a prank, he said, scrolling on his phone. You said the unit's locked. No sign of entry, no damage. But there's someone in there. He shrugged. Maybe a squatter. We'll file a report. Building security should handle it. There is no building security. Then your landlord. Either way, not much we can do unless there's a break-in or someone gets hurt. Ola left the station shaking with frustration. As a social worker, she knew how hard it was to get anyone to care until something turned tragic. The warning note still felt hot in her pocket, though it was just paper. Back in the building that evening, she ran into Eric, the student from across the hall. Skinny, always wearing headphones, reeked of weed but was polite enough. He nodded at her in the stairwell. Hey, she said. Can I ask you something weird? He raised a brow. Weirder than normal? Have you seen anyone go into 307? He pulled out an AirPod. That place next to yours? She nodded. He scratched his head. Maybe a week ago. Thought I saw a guy go in. What kind of guy? Older. Bald. Wore gloves. Thought he was a cleaner or something. There was a lock. He shrugged. Didn't notice. Ola's chest tightened. If you see him again, can you let me know? Immediately. Sure, he said slowly. But what's going on? I don't know, she whispered. But I think someone's living in that apartment, and I don't think they're supposed to be. The next day, Ola tried to distract herself with work, reports, phone calls, scheduled visits, but her focus kept unraveling. She found herself scrolling through Krakow property forums, tenant rights pages, any discussion of squatters or strange neighbors. Everything she found was anecdotal, full of exaggeration or urban legends. But this didn't feel like a legend. Back home, she typed up a detailed report of everything she'd experienced. The tapping, the sound of the lock, the note, Eric's sighting. She even included timestamps and the audio recording. She emailed it to her contact at the municipal housing office and CC'd herself. Just in case. She decided to check on Mrs. Kowalska again. But when she knocked, there was no answer. Strange. The old woman never missed their Thursday check-ins. After several tries, she went downstairs to Stasek. "She okay?" Ola asked. I went up, but no one answered. Stasek wiped his flour-covered hands on his apron. "Taken to hospital." "What? When?" "This morning. Ambulance came around 10. "Which hospital?" He shook his head. "Didn't say." That was odd. Normally, paramedics logged that kind of thing with the property office, especially with vulnerable tenants. Ola texted her supervisor to check the records, but there were none. No call-out to the building, no transport from that address. She went back up and knocked again. Still nothing. Her palms were sweating as she tried the handle. Locked. No light under the door. That evening she waited, not in her bed, but in a chair by the wardrobe, flashlight in hand, recorder ready. The room was dark except for the hallway light seeping under the door. The apartment was silent. So quiet, in fact, that she could hear her own heartbeat ticking away the minutes. 1:40 a.m. She steadied her breath. 1:41. Nothing. 1:42. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't from the wall this time. It was from above her. She looked up. The ceiling. Directly above her bed. But that was impossible. She was on the top floor. There was no fourth story. No attic. Just the roof. Unless someone had found a way into the crawlspace. Unless someone was moving between floors, between walls, living where no one should. Her phone buzzed violently in her lap. A message. From an unknown number. "Check your door." She froze. The hallway light flickered once, then went steady again. Slowly she rose, crept to the front door, and peered through the peephole. No one. But on the floor, another envelope, just like the first. Hands shaking, she picked it up and unfolded the contents. Inside was a photograph. Old. Black and white. Curled at the edges. It showed the hallway, her hallway, but decades ago. The same floor tiles. The same plaster. Standing in the center was a man. Bald. Thin. Staring directly at the camera. Behind him, the door to 307 was open. The number was clear, and spray-painted across it, in looping, childlike scrawl, was a single word. Below. The next day, Ola skipped work. She met Marek, her ex, still a clerk at the city social services office, outside the building. She hadn't seen him in months, but desperation eroded pride. "You look like hell," he said gently. "I need your access to housing archives," she replied. "Pre-digital ones." He hesitated. "That's not. Please. Just an hour." They went to the old registry basement together. Dust, mildew, the smell of cardboard and rot. She combed through shelves until she found Building 418B, their complex. Apartment 307. The official tenant from 2005 to 2017. Katarzyna Radecka. but beneath her name, scratched in pencil, someone else. Tomasz Zielinski. Who's that? Merrick asked. Was he subletting? No, she said, pulling the file closer. He wasn't listed on the lease. Says here he was a temporary guest. She flipped to the maintenance logs. A photo ID paperclipped to the form. The same man. Bald. Gaunt. Wearing gloves. Tomasz Zielinski, Merrick read aloud. Building maintenance contractor. No address listed. Worked here 15 years. But he never filed residency. No. Looks like he just stayed. She stared at the grainy image. Her stomach turned. People would have seen him. Maybe, Merrick said. But if you work in the walls, maybe no one ever looks too hard. That night, Ola didn't return to her apartment. She booked a room at a cheap hostel near the city center. It smelled like detergent and teenage sweat, but she didn't care. She lay on the single bed, staring at the ceiling fan whirring above her, heart still racing from what she and Marek had found. Zielinski, a man who never officially lived there, yet stayed for over a decade, worked maintenance, had access to every lock, every pipe, every crawlspace. She thought of the photo, his hollow face staring into the camera, standing in front of apartment 307, and the word spray-painted on the door, below. She didn't sleep much. But when morning came, she made her decision. She went back. She told herself she just needed to pack and leave, that she'd call her supervisor, transfer her clients, sublease the apartment. But as she opened the door to her flat, something stopped her. Silence. Too silent. No creaking above. No pipes groaning. She stood in the entryway for a full minute before moving. Half her things were already boxed. She'd never really settled in any way. She reached for her suitcase when she heard a creak. Not from the ceiling. From under the floor. She knelt beside the radiator near the wardrobe, tapped lightly on the boards. One spot echoed slightly. Hollow. She fetched a screwdriver from her kitchen drawer and pried at the seams. The wooden slat popped loose. Beneath it, dust, insulation, and something deeper. A small trapdoor, no more than 2 feet by 2 feet. She stared at it, every instinct in her screaming to close it and run. But her hand moved before her brain could stop it. The panel lifted. The smell hit her first. Mildew, rust, something darker. A narrow crawlspace lay below. Dirt floor, wooden beams. A service tunnel, maybe, running between the buildings. It was dark and barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. Yet tracks were visible. Scuffed earth. Someone had moved here recently. Was still moving. Her flashlight beam quivered as she scanned the tunnel. And then, at the very end, a glint. A pair of eyes. Watching. She gasped and yanked the panel shut, stumbling backward, nearly vomiting from the adrenaline rush. She called the police. This time, her voice broke. She told them everything. Records, photographs, names. She begged. They came within an hour. The officers pried open the panel with crowbars. 2 of them crawled inside, while Ola stood back, arms crossed tight over her chest. Minutes passed. Then, "We've got something." A shape was dragged from the tunnel. A man. Alive. Barely. Emaciated. Pale. Dressed in layers of old workman's clothes, face covered in grime and cobwebs. His head was shaved, his eyes sunken, wide open, blinking at the light like it burned. He didn't speak. didn't struggle, just stared. Ola recognized him instantly. Tomasz Zielinski. Except the man they'd found couldn't possibly be in his 60s. He looked older, or maybe not aged at all. A constable knelt beside him. He's breathing, but barely. We're calling an ambulance. They brought him out in cuffs anyway. Later, they told Ola what they found. Tunnels, dozens of them, running beneath the building. Access panels. Crawlways. Narrow ducts carved into the walls. Inside the old 307, hidden behind the crumbling plaster, they found food wrappers, clothing, Polaroids, a small mattress, a camera, and on the walls, names. Dozens. Some were of tenants who'd moved, others no one could trace, including Zofia Kowalska. The old woman was never found. A month later, Ola moved out. The building was partially sealed. City inspectors declared sections of it structurally unsound. Police never filed formal charges. There were too many gaps. Tomasz was transferred to a psychiatric facility. He never spoke a word. No one ever figured out how long he'd been living inside the walls. The photos in 307 dated back nearly 30 years. Eric moved too. Said he couldn't sleep. Said he kept dreaming about footsteps inside his mattress. As for Ola, she quit her job, started over in Wrocław. But she still wakes at 1:42 a.m. And sometimes, just before the silence ends, she swears she can hear it. Tap, tap, tap.